Welcome to a very special edition of Plank of the Week. This is our 100th episode. And what better news for you could I bring you than to have the legend that is James Whale join us for the 100th edition. Thank you very much indeed for sparing some time for us, James.
Well, it's my pleasure to do so, but could you leave the legend out of it?
He doesn't like being called a legend. I don't know why. You wouldn't object to being called a legend, Emma, would you? Emma Webb is also here for the 100th edition. I think it's a very good choice that we've made. So would you like to nominate your first plank of
My
this
first
week?
plank of the week. Okay, I have given this an enormous amount of thought, and
Yes.
I was going to do this last, but I think, and I've watched the show many times, but I think I am going to nominate as plank of the week a gentleman who's called James Whale.
Is it a different James Whale?
No,
The legendary James
the legendary
Whale.
James Whale.
James Whale, who quite a lot of people say is a plank.
Yes.
I've never understood why. So I thought, well, we would start off with myself as plank of the week, and then people can get it out of their system.
Okay. Well, what particular reason have you got for nominating yourself this week, though?
Well, this week I think I have been a bit of a plank for saying things like, you know, come on. Everybody going on, well, I'm going to take a refugee into my house. I'm going to have somebody in there. And are you really? I mean, obviously, I think we should be looking after people who need looking after. Of course we should.
Really?
Nobody, yes, absolutely we should.
So will you be taking a Ukrainian refugee?
I'm not
then?
taking anybody in. And if you find that an insult, I'm very sorry. But I don't want to take anybody in. And I'm sure there are lots of other people who could do it. But before you do it, I hope that you're going to actually have the person you were taking into your home, maybe your home with your children, maybe your home with your animals, I don't know, thoroughly checked out just to make sure what sort of person they are. All the people fleeing the tragedy that has become Ukraine because of that plank Putin, but he's been nominated, I'm sure, many times.
He will be probably carried over this week into the list, I'm sure.
I just think before everybody starts rushing up and virtue signaling, I'm going to take a refugee in, I'm going to take one in, these people fleeing may well not want to come into your house anyway. But I think we should be taking as many people who want to come here, primarily people who have relatives here, who speak English, who know somebody here. Otherwise, I'm not really sure why people will want to come all the way to Britain when they could go to somewhere closer and just as safe.
Yes, indeed. And also, the thing about all these people who are saying they want to take a refugee, they haven't really given it any thought at all. They haven't really walked themselves through the possibility of what could happen to their lease if they're renting, to their mortgage if they're...
And insurance as
their
well.
insurance
Do they need
could be
landlord
affected.
insurance?
Well, they might need landlord insurance. Suddenly, if they are an owner of a house and a property, they've got a tenant because they're going to be paid money by the government.
Yep.
It's very complicated. And also, what if you've got a family of 3 or 4, say a mother and 2 or 3 children, you can only take 2 of them. What happens then?
Yeah.
Do you take 2 and give the 2 to your neighbour? I mean, how does it work?
Someone called up Jeremy's show the other day saying that he was concerned that if he were to take women and children into his house, that he could get Me Too'd.
Yeah.
But to flip that on its head, you'd think that actually, if you were a young mother or a child coming to this country, that it wouldn't be the most ideal situation to be housed with complete strangers as opposed to other refugees like those coming illegally across the channel who get put up in nice hotels.
Well, I mean, of course, we could put them in nice hotels, but unfortunately all the nice hotels are full of illegal migrants.
With the illegal migrants who are coming, and nobody's stopping them either.
Also, nobody's inviting them into their homes.
No.
What's that all about?
No, and the interesting thing about those is that they are all men of military age, but nobody is saying that. So I'm not an unfeeling person, even though you might think I am. But I just think this is the most ridiculously stupid idea. And by the way, before you get all excited about the £350 you're going to get paid a month, guess who's paying that?
Yeah.
You are.
We are. Well, I am actually.
You are.
Yeah, I'm
yeah, but
paying
you
for all
pay
of it.
more tax than the rest of us.
Yes,
yeah.
it's not fair.
No.
I don't wish to have my tax. People say to me, what are you doing for the Ukrainian refugees? I'm paying my taxes. And that means the government can take my money and do what it wishes with it.
Can I say something else that makes me an even bigger plank of
You
the
can.
week?
I've got a couple of suggestions as well.
Good. You do them in a moment.
Yeah.
But I actually think I am fed up with the way the West, including Britain, America, that's run by a geriatric, hopeless idiot at the moment, and I don't want to go to America anyway, but we're doing nothing. Sanctions, not going to do anything. If we're really serious about stopping Putin, then we are going to have to use military force. I'm sorry, but
that
we
means
are.
that you are a warmonger, therefore, and therefore you want to see World War III.
I don't want to
That's what
see World
everybody
War
else
III
says.
at all.
But that's what everybody says you
I've got
want.
a grandson in the army. I seriously don't.
Right. No, I think in the end, unless Putin sort of falls over and all the tanks get blown up by the Stinger missiles that we've given to the Ukrainian army, he's not going to stop unless somebody stops him.
Yeah.
Right?
He's going to carry on. When he's done Ukraine, he'll get into Poland and Latvia. And by the way, while we're talking about this, the idiot who models himself on some other kind of despot in Belarus, he needs sorting out as well. And rather than just sitting around and saying, well, we don't like this and this mustn't happen anymore, and, the United Nations are trying to be united, they're doing absolutely nothing. And NATO is saying, well, we're going to get really tough if you put a bomb over the border. This is a silly situation. Putin has already mentioned his nuclear deterrent. He's mentioned chemical weapons. And we're not really doing much.
Well, the United Nations is hopeless. They think it's a great idea to have Russia on the Security Council.
Yeah.
So nothing can actually ever get done.
Yeah.
It's nonsensical. Now, I would like to mention why I think you should be a plank.
Please.
I have been accused this week of being the new James Whale, which I personally find an insult and an absolutely dreadful thing to be accused of. They claim that I've started putting the phone down on people as if, you invented putting the phone down on people. I mean, I've been putting the phone down on people for years.
Yeah, I don't put the phone down on people.
You do? Yeah, I've heard you do it. I listen to your show religiously every night.
I might put the phone down on one or two people, as do you.
I heard you say just the other week you're getting very close to getting thrown off this show. I heard you say that.
To a person.
Yes.
Giving them full warning that they were being stupid, moronic and idiotic.
Someone's going to have to produce a montage of this.
Well, listen, I'm not against it, but what I'm saying is a lot of people think that that's plankish.
But
If
isn't
running a radio show where you're supposed to be asking people to call in, and you keep cutting them off.
I don't keep cutting them off. And people often say, oh, I call in, you don't listen to what I'm saying. Of course I listen to what you're saying. And I allow people to go on and on. But sometimes some people go on and on and on, talking complete and utter rubbish.
It's true.
And then they'll say, you haven't let me get my point out. Well, they've put their point out 2 or 3 times, but then I must move on. Because there are intelligent, clever people, the majority, of course, who call in, that I want to get and chat to.
Yes, of course. And there are certainly some people who claim that you've shut them down after having had them on.
There are some people that claim that I am just a tool of the government.
Yes. I was accused of being part of the World Economic Forum today, the WEF.
You told me not to mention that.
I'm not in the pay of them. I can say that absolutely and utterly. I'm really not, honestly not. If I'm in the pay, I need a pay rise. It's not enough.
You're not one of their young leaders, are you?
Apparently not. Although somebody will no doubt stunt up
Hang
a
on,
picture
Emma,
of me.
did you use the word young?
Young, yes.
As a pronoun
Yes.
to describe him?
Well, I'm younger than you.
Everybody's younger than me.
Emma, who's your first plank nominee?
It's been a very bad month for the SNP, hasn't it?
Yeah,
so
it
I'm going to
certainly has.
nominate Nicola
It's
Sturgeon
been a
on
bad
behalf of
couple
the lot
years,
of them.
hasn't it?
But mainly because Nicola Sturgeon chose International Women's Day to apologise to witches
Oh, yes.
for the Witchcraft Act, which she believes she says, even though the Witchcraft Act is obviously long gone, misogyny is still very much with us.
Is she trying to make out that the witches were the subjects of misogyny?
It's exactly what she was saying.
What is misogyny?
Well,
What is that?
It's men who hate women.
Do you know many men who hate women?
I don't know any men that hate
No, I
women.
don't either. I love women.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was the first of a long list of silly things that the SNP
She
and
is a
Nicola Sturgeon
stupid
have done.
woman. I'm
She's
sorry
gone
to
a
say
bit
that's
mad,
a bit
hasn't
sexist, but well, she's not a man.
That's very
So
misogynistic of you, James.
It's not. And if it was a man, I'd say the same thing. She's stupid. Okay. First of all, I like to call her Jimmy Cranky because every time I see her, she reminds me of Jimmy Cranky. And secondly, the idea that she's stopping oil, which we badly need at the moment, coming into this country, I think that's almost criminal.
She
to be
also,
honest.
though, called for a no-fly zone at the same time as multiple members of her party, including on Question Time in an argument with Konstantin Kisin. Her members of her party have been going on and saying that the SNP still wants to scrap Trident. So they want to essentially provoke nuclear war and also get rid of the
Yes.
UK's nuclear deterrent. They
think-
sound like a very, very fit party, don't they?
Very stupid, and they're ruining Scotland. But I think what we need if they carry on like this, because I get loads of great phone calls from Scotland, none of which ever support the Scottish National Party or the idea. But I think if they're not careful, the SNP, we should have a referendum in England to see whether we really want to be harassed by them anymore. It costs us money with a
I would hate
Barnett
to see that
formula.
because I'm British, you see, and I believe in
I agree
Scotland
with
very
you.
much, and I don't want to see
Yeah,
Scotland
I'm half Welsh.
getting independent.
You know, and the Welsh Assembly, or whatever they call it, is completely
The Synod,
ridiculous.
they call it now, don't they?
Yeah.
The Synod.
Yeah, well,
They can't call it the Welsh Assembly anymore. Apparently the Synod
No.
sounds better.
yeah. The amount of money they waste on the Welsh language.
Oh, I know.
If I was to nominate the Welsh language as Plank of the Week,
Yeah.
we would be in big trouble.
Oh yeah.
So
I've been in trouble before because of things that have been said about the Welsh language. Because the Welsh Language Act protects the Welsh
Can I
language.
give you a Welsh word that you might occasionally like to use?
Go on then. Is it not rude?
Achefi.
Eh?
Achefi.
What does that mean?
You find out.
Well, I'm going to stick with politics because my first nominee is the Labour Party. Because
whole of it?
Labour, yeah, all of it. Because there's nobody in the Labour Party who apparently is either a woman or who can define
There are women
what
in the
a woman
Labour
is.
Party.
Well,
I've seen them. What are you
No.
talking about?
Well, you can't tell me there are any women in the Labour Party because Keir Starmer can't define one, and Yvette Cooper doesn't know what a woman is either. And in fact,
And this actually ties into why Nicola Sturgeon is such a plank as well, is because she's apologising to witches whilst essentially treating TERFs as if they are the new witches, persecuting women who are gender critical.
right. And when you say TERF,
on.
for those people who don't understand,
Trans-exclusionary radical
What is a
feminists.
woman, Emma?
perhaps, James may have a problem not knowing what TERFs are. So,
What are they?
do you know what a TERF
No.
is? Tell him what a TERF
A
is.
trans-exclusionary radical feminist.
I.e., it's a woman who thinks that trans women are not necessarily
And a woman is an adult human female,
Yeah.
like me.
So
Well,
you're
can
a woman.
I don't
I'm a
want,
woman.
I don't want to really upset everybody, but there are men and women.
Makes a change.
There are men and women, and then there are a number of other people who have different sorts of sexual organs, or a couple of them.
Or gender.
No, but gender's different. Then people who wish to choose or change their gender. I have absolutely no problem with any of that. I do have a problem with a minority of people who keep shouting about it and moaning about it when they are a minority. And if they just keep quiet about it, they wouldn't have any problems, would they?
Well, I mean, the trouble is they would say, well, we don't want to keep quiet about it because we're a persecuted minority. That's why we have to
Well,
keep
how are
making
they
a lot of noise.
persecuted? Because if they decide they want to dress as a woman, or a woman wants to dress as a man, and they look like what they're dressing, then there will be no problem. But if you want to identify as a woman, wear a dress, walk around on high heels, but include having a beard, then you're probably going to worry some people.
Okay. Well, what
Aren't
about
you?
Well, probably.
Yeah,
But one of the reasons that I'm nominating the entire Labour Party is because from Sadiq Khan all the way down to Keir Starmer and including Yvette Cooper, whenever they're asked a question, they simply can't answer it. Yvette Cooper was asked on a radio interview just a few days ago, "Can you please define what a woman is?" And she said, "I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole." Right? And you think to yourself, well, why can't you just say exactly what you've just said, which is that a woman is...
Annalisa Dodd said that it shouldn't be this complicated. Of course it shouldn't be this complicated. It's people in the Labour Party who hide behind the couch every time somebody mentions the word woman, as if it
it's
should
like
be
you can
something
imagine in
controversial.
the sort of, the pre-interview room before they go on TV, their advisors are going, well, what if they ask you what a woman is? What are you going to say? And they're probably terrified of being asked that question, which means obviously we'll always ask them that
They're
question.
They're terrified of saying something that everybody until the last couple of years just took to be a straighthtforward fact, which is that you simply cannot change your biological sex.
No.
It's not possible to change your
But
biological sex.
can I say, I feel really sorry for somebody who feels, and I know some people who've successfully transitioned, and they are so much happier because they felt in themselves that they had been born into the wrong body. And somebody who has, I feel heartily sorry for. And one friend of mine in particular who has changed, and if she walked in now, you would know she hadn't always been a woman. And she is so much happier, so much more relaxed. And that is great because some people are born into the wrong body.
There's also plenty of trans women who are more than happy to just live their lives without
There
shouting from
are
the
plenty of
rooftops.
trans women who, commenting on this exact debate, have said that they are people who have suffered from gender dysphoria.
Yeah.
They have then transitioned in terms of making themselves to appear like the sex that they feel that they identify most closely with, but they still regard themselves as not being a biological woman, but being a trans woman. And those women get accused of transphobia.
Yes.
Because,
And all of this,
because
of
they
course,
don't believe
is
it's possible
around-
to change your sex.
And all of this is around the issues which are difficult, which is, do you send a man, essentially, who contends that he's a woman, to a woman's prison? Well, no, you shouldn't. And should women be assailed by men who say they're women in a female changing room? No.
I mean, if you have a penis, you're a man. If you have a vagina, you're a woman. If in your head you feel that you have the wrong accoutrements, then you can do something about it. But if in your head you feel, well, I don't really want to go that far, I'd just like to dress up like one, then I think we have to think again, don't
Yes,
we?
I
Or
think
I'm very old, I'm sorry.
Listen, all I would say is that the point about having a political party, surely, is that that's what it's for. It's supposed to be and a place you can go and get a proper definition of something and say,
And of course,
and have people tell you what they believe. But
the
they can't
irony
do it.
is that Annalisa Dodds is the Equalities Shadow Minister
Well,
as
the
well.
other irony, of course, is that the Labour Party have never had a female leader, and now we know why.
It's obvious the reason why they're afraid of. I mean, I'm not defending them at all, but it's clear the reason why they are afraid to actually say anything of any meaning whatsoever on the subject is because it's almost impossible to say anything on it without tripping yourself up,
Do you know,
or without accidentally using the wrong words.
Now, coming up next, we'll find out who the next round of planks is likely to be after this. Welcome back to the 100th edition of Plank of the Week. James Whale is here with us. James, who's your second nominee?
A man who I used to really respect and think he was a great actor, but Benedict Cumberbatch.
Oh, yes.
And I never thought I'd be able to say his name right, but him. What a pillock. I mean, really, utterly stupid.
Tone deaf, I think we call it now, don't
Tone
we?
deaf, totally, yeah. And all those lovies at the BAFTAs making political comments that they know nothing about. Who was the other one who played Gollum?
Oh, yes.
Christmas or...
Yeah, the guy, I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
Well, he's that famous, I don't know who he is.
Yeah, exactly. Going on about his political views. Who cares? Do you?
No.
I don't.
And Rebel Wilson as well made some kind of comment about getting cancelled from Netflix, but it was obvious she was also taking a swipe at Netflix for not upholding cancel culture. The whole thing, I actually watched some of it for my sins. I watched some of it, and it was just one celebrity that I didn't know after another standing up in front of a room of celebrities, spouting things that everybody else would bark like a seal at.
And he, of course, was very clear on how he was going to take a Ukrainian refugee
He's
into his house.
taking
I mean,
a lot
haven't
of
they
them.
suffered enough?
Yeah.
Eh?
No, exactly. But my thought, but we should keep an eye on Benedict What's-His-Face and
See if
see
he actually
how
does.
many he takes and if he takes any.
The thing about all of the people, I mean, Lily Allen as well, they're obviously holding
There's loads of
themselves
them.
out to be accused of hypocrisy later when they don't actually do it. But I know of people who have taken refugees into their houses and haven't said a thing about it publicly because they're doing it because they want to help, not because they want to signal
Unlike Gary
how
Lineker.
virtuous they are. Unlike Gary Lineker and Lily Allen, they're more interested in the PR because they know that once the story is gone,
Gary
everyone
Lineker's
will
not
remember
very
they're a
quiet,
saint.
actually, on this, hasn't he? He hasn't said much about the Ukrainian
Can I
situation.
just say one thing about Gary Lineker? It's simple.
Yeah.
He's a footballer.
Yeah. I refer to them as the one-eyed man in the land of the blind. It's like Gary Neville's another one. Gary Neville was out all over the Twitter this week saying, it's disgraceful that we're not taking any proper numbers in terms of the refugees. And he did this whole list that he obviously found somewhere on Twitter of all the neighbouring countries to Ukraine, like Poland, like Moldova, like Lithuania, all the places that are actually geographically close to Ukraine, which are taking a lot more refugees.
But we're a
on
long
the
way
face of it,
away.
because they're a lot closer. They're literally neighbouring countries. And you just think, Gary, he owns hotels. Is he going to take one of his hotels and give it to the Ukrainian
Well, if he
refugees?
is, Gary, well done. Let us know, and we will actually...
No, but he's another one.
approach
He's
it.
taken Gary Lineker's lead and has decided that he's going to give his views on everything under the sun. You know, and-
Footballers really should concentrate on kicking that little round thing about. You know, they got themselves into such trouble taking the knee. I mean, they've made themselves look totally idiotic, haven't they?
They've also held themselves up for criticism anytime they do anything that isn't remotely saintly, because everyone will now point at the fact that they took the knee and made themselves out to be so virtuous, and then they get caught doing something they ought not to be doing.
exactly.
Here's an interesting
Also, I
fact
mean, the
about
idea that Gary Neville, sorry to interrupt
No,
you
go
for a
on.
moment, he
It's your
also
show.
put out, well, not really. It hasn't got my name on it, unlike the other show that I did.
Really?
It does have my name on it, yeah.
Should we ever talk to the boss in a minute?
I will.
Yeah, okay.
Happy International Women's Day. Put
Thank you.
out a question.
sorry.
Did Gary Neville put out? We are very lucky that 76% of our team are at hotel football are female. That's 170 inspiring and ambitious women that our company wouldn't be the same without. Thank you for all your incredible work every single day. You truly are our superheroes. I mean, Really?
Does he know
I
how to
believe that's what-
patronise properly?
I mean, I put a picture out of him and Ryan Giggs,
Yeah.
you know, who's not exactly known for his treatment of women being particularly good. And I said, well, it didn't seem to bother you when you were friends with Ryan Giggs. You know, I don't understand why you have to call people superheroes when they just do a job.
To appropriate a term from Emily Carver, it's vomitorious.
Vomitorious is a good word. I like that word.
That is a very good word. I'm going to nick that as well. Vomitorious.
Vomitorious.
Yeah. I
we
think
are.
footballers should just... An interesting fact about footballers, because if you look through the population, a certain amount of people in the population obviously are gay or lesbian, but not in football.
No.
I mean, that is amazing, isn't it?
It is quite surprising.
Because, you know, a lot of people in a celebrity world obviously do come out now to support each other, to say, and there's nothing wrong with being gay, as we know. And the footballing community seem only to attract heterosexuals. How is that
Yes.
possible?
Well, I mean, maybe it's just one of those things.
Yeah.
Could well be. Who's your second nominee, Emma?
President Macron
Ah, yes.
for playing dress up
Emmanuel.
as Zelensky.
Yes.
He came
pocket rocket.
into he was photographed in this palatial office wearing French Special Forces hoodie and jeans,
Yes.
obviously trying to imitate Zelensky with his little stubble,
Little
because
stubble.
normally Macron is clean shaven.
He's normally
So
very, very sort of slick looking.
he
isn't
was obviously, you know, pandering to the Zelensky mania, and he's got the French elections coming up in April, and he obviously thinks that he's going to make himself look like a tough guy.
Yeah.
It's like a little kid dressing up as a cowboy.
He's also been copying a couple of poses that JFK made. One famously when he was on the phone to Leonid Brezhnev back in the proper days of the
I
Cold
remember.
War. And there's a picture of Kennedy and he's kind of holding his head in his hands as he's speaking on the phone. And Macron actually posed in exactly the same pose because he's obviously looking through historical photographs and going, oh, now I can look a bit like JFK. That'll work.
It's
What's wrong with these
extremely
people?
pathetic.
Well, I don't know. Is it that these politicians are coming from a particular age range now that are, I don't know. I mean, we've got the whole woke thing going on. Is Macron woke or French woke, or is he
Well,
just
do you know,
trying
he's
to-
a bit woke, but he wasn't woke enough not to say to the people who were trying to take some statues down, actually, no, we're going to keep those. So
Yeah.
And he was
one
also
thing that
very
did
good
well.
over the whole aftermath of Samuel Paty being murdered, and he came out and was very
the teacher.
firmly, who was beheaded by an Islamist.
Yeah.
Very firmly came out in defence of French secularism and French values
Yeah.
and so on. Same with the statues. I mean, obviously he's not good on all.
Well, I
things,
applaud
but-
him for that. And I wish, that's the thing, I really wish this country would separate religion from state. I don't see why this country has to have a religion when we are basically mostly secular and it's a minority
Do you
who
not
are
go
religious.
with the term that we are a Christian country then?
No, I certainly do not.
Why not?
Well,
Surely we
because-
are.
No, what is Christian? You don't start me on this, or we will go on to everything, right? You know, do not
start you
me
on
on that.
anything.
Religion, fine. I have no problem. You can be a Christian, a Muslim, whatever you want to be. I don't care. But don't start telling me what you think is right, because
I'm
you
not
don't
saying that.
know.
I'm just saying
And you
we're a
believe
Christian
in an
country.
imaginary friend.
I'm not saying
okay?
I do believe
We
in it.
do not need the country to grasp onto some religion. You want to be religious, I have no problem, but stop making it a thing that...
Well, hang on.
It
We've
worked,
got a
it set him off.
We've got a Church
We're a
of England.
secular
Hang on, we've
country.
got a Church of England of which the Queen is the head, right? Which makes it a Christian country. We've got the Church of Scotland.
Take the church and the state away from each other.
I think that would be a mistake. Is there
Why?
a Church of Wales?
I've no idea, and I don't even
Well,
care.
you said you were half Welsh.
I am, but I don't
Why
know.
don't you know?
I don't know anything
I don't
about
think there is a Church of Wales, is there?
I don't
I don't
care.
think so, but I'm not sure.
I really don't care.
It's the
I hope
Church of
there isn't.
Scotland.
I think the Christian sort of moniker, though.
You
does
knew
not-
this would get me going. Why
didn't.
did you bring this up?
I did not know it
You
was going to
did.
get you going at
Yes,
all.
you did.
I just think that we would describe this country as Christian because it's not about religion so much as
Are
it
you
is
talking about morals?
a Christian sort of culture. Well, no, but our history is
Which
Christian.
is
isn't it?
not the culture of Christianity is appalling.
Is it?
Look what they feel about people who are homosexual, people who are gay.
Well, that's changing, though.
It's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it is not.
You can have gay
Christianity,
priests now.
Islam, whatever you want, do it in your own home and leave me out of it, please.
All right, then. So, and Jameswell doesn't think it's a Christian country.
Just because I'm circumcised does not.
That was an unexpected interjection. I wasn't asking for that piece of information, but thanks for sharing. It won't matter much for much longer anyway. Now,
What? How do you mean?
well, I mean,
Strange threat.
Well, I don't, well, you won't be caring too much, man. I mean, it gives you the great age that you're getting to. You
Oh,
won't
I
be
see
able
what
to
you
do
mean.
yourself an injury.
Well, let me tell you that is a complete fallacy.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is that with a PH? Now, listen, it's time for my second
Have you given me
nominee.
those blue pills I gave you back here?
No, I haven't. Thank you anyway. My second nominee is an old mate of yours, a man you've known for some time, and
Yeah.
you've been in the same restaurant as,
Yeah.
Mr. John Bercow. Now, normally speaking, he should have
Not a mate of mine.
He should have made it onto Plank of the
all.
Week last week. He just missed it by a day.
Yeah.
Because what we didn't know when we did Plank of the Week last week, when we recorded it, was that he was about to be banned for life from the Parliament of Westminster. Now, I don't think... I've been asking people if they can remember anybody else ever being banned for life, and nobody can.
No.
So I think it's a unique honour that he's been given.
Well, I think he is a plank. I mean, that's for sure. And I've never met him, except I was in a restaurant. I was telling you this story. That was in confidence.
Was it?
Yeah,
oh, I didn't
Rob
realise.
was really.
Sorry.
So I was in this restaurant, and he was in there as well. And, you know, I was sitting in there with a friend. We were having a little chat about nothing in particular. And this bloke, little bloke,
He's very short,
you're allowed
isn't
to
he?
say that now,
I
because you
think- well, I
can't
think
fat shame
technically-
people
well,
or anything, can you?
Well, technically, he is small.
Yeah, he's very small.
Yeah.
Anyway, with a big mouth. And he was talking about his life in politics.
Was
and
he the
how
speaker at that point?
No, it was before he was
Order!
the speaker. Yeah. But he's getting everything he deserves because obviously he's only interested in being a celebrity.
We're going to find out who the final round of nominees is going to be coming up very shortly after this. Welcome back to the 100th edition of Plank of the Week. James Whale is here, so is Emma Webb, and we're going to come to you for your final nomination. Who is your third one?
Nottingham University.
Excellent.
You
know
will
why.
remember Tony Sewell, the man who was behind the government's race report.
Yes.
He was given an honorary degree by Nottingham. And they have since decided to revoke that degree because they feel it will offend students because the report found that Britain wasn't institutionally racist.
No.
So Nottingham University have decided to strip a black man, of a very successful black man who does incredible work on improving people's advantages from minority communities and helping them with their social mobility. They have decided to strip him of his honorary degree because they're afraid that giving him it will insult students or offend them in
Yeah,
some
they might
way.
be offended. There's a lot of this going on in university at the moment, isn't there? There's people worried about offending other people, so you can't do certain things or say certain things or even, invite certain people to make speeches, right?
It's so back to front and inside out, isn't it? And he's criticised them, saying that universities in this country have no free speech and are behaving like the Soviet Union.
I think that's
Absolutely
right.
right. But it just shows how completely backwards their thinking is, that they would strip this man of his honorary degree, ostensibly in the name of racism, in the name of anti-racism even, because they think that saying that Britain isn't institutionally racist or having findings that Britain isn't institutionally racist is somehow offensive and racist.
Well, I don't want to get us taken off the air. And I have a couple of friends' children who are university students, and they're great. They're very, they're not woke or anything else. But I'm beginning to wonder why we bother with universities anymore, because such rubbish comes out of the mouths of lecturers, student unions, which are just the most cretinous bunch of yobbos, honestly. I used to love, back in the 90s, having loads of students call up my shows and wind me up.
Yes.
Now they don't have the intelligence to be able to do it, because I might actually cause them some kind of mental
Episode,
harm.
yes.
Yeah. And
Well, do you know the other thing that's been going on, which I didn't know until a couple of weeks ago, is that for most of February, the lecturers at universities were all on strike. And you go,
nobody
hang on,
notices.
well, they've been working from home.
Don't cross the online picket line.
Yeah.
I mean, so what are you on strike from? Like walking into your living room and opening your laptop?
Why do we pay people who are called what are they, the vice chancellors?
Yeah.
Where are the chancellors? They're all vice. Why do we pay them such huge amounts of
Six
money?
figures, big numbers.
Yeah. Why are universities getting funding off some of these most appalling countries
Like China.
in the world?
Yeah.
China, I believe, some of the Saudi puts money into,
Oh, yes.
you know. Why on earth are we allowing our universities to go down the toilet?
Well, I mean, I seem to remember the London School of Economics had the Muammar Gaddafi wing,
Yeah.
which was utilised by one of Gaddafi's sons. He decided to come to LSE and sort of lord it about and go as if he owned the place. Well, guess what? Because he did own the place.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, I find it's no great thing saying, oh, I'm going to university. Used to be a great thing. In the day, I used to go to Oxford quite often and take part in debates.
Yes.
And they were quite
The Oxford
feisty.
Union.
Yeah. And I used to love it because you got to stay in the Randolph Hotel.
Did you?
Yeah, very nice. But I wouldn't be invited now. I'd be cancelled
Yeah.
the next day, quite rightly too. I wouldn't want to go. But what has happened to our universities? It's not worth the paper it's written on.
No.
Going back to what we were saying earlier about the gender critical feminists, that it's gender critical feminists that are often the ones who get cancelled from universities. They're the ones whose views are seen as beyond the pale and so offensive that they have to be no platform.
Yeah.
People like, if you remember what happened to Professor Kathleen Stock,
Yes,
she
that was Sussex, wasn't it?
essentially
Appalling.
bullied and
Absolutely appalling.
protested
Yeah.
off of campus until she resigned. She was treated, I mean, that really was it's like a witch hunt, right? And clearly the crisis of free speech on campuses is something that goes extremely deep. But it just seems, I think it's a perfect example of how completely twisted they're thinking.
I have a solution.
Do you?
As we are heading for the Third World War, apparently,
Yes.
I think we bring back conscription.
That's a good idea.
And I think the first people we conscript are university students.
Yes.
Do you not think that's a
I
good
think there
idea?
are too many of them, right?
Yeah,
because
I do.
when I went to university, it was a very small number. I think it was something like 5%
Yeah.
of the age group that was going to go to university went to university, and now it's something like 50%.
You'd probably have
isn't it?
you'd have a slight problem there, in that a lot of them will be international students that you can't conscript.
Well, if they're international students, then they suppose they've got an excuse.
No, if they're international students and they're paying lots of money, then. But it depends where they come from. Why are we taking the children of some of the despots of the world into our universities?
Well, because
And
they're
we
all in
are.
our schools as well. They're all. I mean, most
Well,
of the
kick
private
them out.
schools in this country.
If we're going to be
are
serious about
supported.
sorting it out, kick them out. If we're going to be serious about it, let's not say, oh,
You
no,
can't punish the children.
Well, sorry, war punishes everybody. Tell the Ukrainian children who've been bombed to bits.
Also, we are literally punishing the children of various oligarchs and so on right now
Yeah,
with
of
the
course.
sanctions.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, that's what happens in a conflict. Everybody will be hurt. We will be all suffering from this when the price of everything goes up.
So
if
here's
we
a
don't
good
sort it
idea,
out.
though, because we'll sort of finesse your idea slightly.
Yeah,
if,
please.
If you want to conscript only university students, it might mean that quite a lot of people, in order to avoid conscription, wouldn't go to university, which is bound to be a massive improvement for society because
Yeah.
they'd actually go and learn a proper job, a proper craft, a proper trade. So we could have plumbers, electricians,
Yeah.
mechanics, all the
And
people you can't get.
I'm privileged to say that the university I went to is probably the best one, well, probably the best one in the world.
I didn't think you went to university.
I did.
Did you?
Yeah.
Which one?
The University of Life.
I see. That's what I thought.
walked
Yes.
right into it.
Very good. I know. Let's just hit them up for him and he hits them away. Well, now it's time for your final nomination.
Okay.
Do you remember what it is?
Yeah, I do. I've given this lots of thought.
Okay.
And I was reading the paper earlier today, and it just hit me in the face. What a stupid idiot. I was going to say something ruder, but I'll save that for my late night radio show. I mean, the man's name, apparently he has a lot of fans. So I expect a lot of hate mail for
Yes.
this. But the man's name is Russell Brand.
Russell Brand.
What a prat.
Former comedian.
Comedian?
Former.
He's
Yeah.
about as funny as a load of, well, never mind, make up your own.
Dead
but-
fish.
Yeah, he is now
Former
becoming
junkie.
former junkie.
Yeah.
A bloke who walks around as if he's the smartest man on the planet.
Well,
talking
unfortunately,
complete and utter rubbish all
he
the time.
proved that he wasn't that. Do you remember when he appeared on Question Time?
Yes.
And everyone thought, oh, this will be good. Russell Brand, what a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
And he was useless.
completely
wasn't he?
useless.
Do you
He's
remember that?
thick.
I haven't seen it, but I'm going
Really?
to go and look it up now.
But now, of course, he's trying to get himself involved in all this. He actually, I think, we're talking about religion, I think he sees himself as some kind of saintly character.
Do you think he's got a bit of a God complex?
I think
He's
yeah.
always, pardon the pun, branded himself in that way,
He
hasn't
has.
he? With the
Do you remember
kind
the
of
scene he did with,
Jesus-like hair and
Yeah, do you remember the scene he did with Ed Miliband? When Ed Miliband thought
That
it would
was
be
a
a great
scene.
idea to pop round to Russell's place, which is, of course, an incredibly expensive, rather sort of modern-looking loft somewhere in East London, you know, where they sat and sort of chewed the fat and talked politics. and it was embarrassing.
Yeah.
And it killed off Ed Miliband's hopes for any kind of win at the election, because everyone thought, well, if you think he's clever, then what does it say about you?
And Russell Brand went to America and they thought he was great, which is of no surprise to me at all.
No, that's right.
So where is he now? Have you seen him lately?
Well, he is still knocking about. I mean, he does a podcast, I think. He does these videos. He's followed by about 11 million people on Twitter. I mean, he does have a massive following.
When you think about
He's a sort of
11
Joe
million
Rogan
people,
type figure.
He's
isn't
nothing
he?
like Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan at least is quite entertaining. He isn't. And he talks in this ridiculously stupid way. I've never heard his podcast, so I have no intention of listening.
No, I haven't
find
either.
him annoying. But it just people seem to fall into the trap, don't they? But 11 million people worldwide, that's nothing, is it really? I mean, you get that on your show on Talk Radio.
Well, I do,
yeah.
but I don't know that many people follow me on Twitter, though, unfortunately.
Well, you don't want people on Twitter, do you?
Well, I mean,
It's common.
Twitter is a cesspit of all kinds of evil and nastiness. You know?
That's
So-
why I love it so much.
Yeah, I like it too. He's an odious character. I've never liked him. I've never really.
But
bought
maybe we're
into...
too old. Maybe Emma is more the age range.
No,
for
I know
Russell.
people that like him. I know people
Yeah.
that listen to him and who think he's really funny. You know,
I don't know anybody.
but I
who
don't
does,
suspect
but-
Emma's one of them. To be honest, I think the problem is that we now live in a world where lots of people who think that their opinions matter now have a
Yeah.
platform to put those opinions
Well,
out.
it's like the people
Where
at
it used
the-
to be the old Green Ink Brigade in newspaper days,
yeah.
where some nutter would ring in and you just put the phone down on them.
Sorry,
It's
Emma.
like the celebrities at the BAFTAs or standing up in front of people
Exactly,
exactly like
yeah.
them, and they think that they the world needs to hear their opinion
Yes.
on things, that they're not just actors, they must use their platform
Yes.
for something bigger and greater than themselves, and because they live in this completely egotistical, narcissistic world that tells them that they're important, that makes them believe that they really are above everyone else and therefore should be preaching to all of
Yes.
the
Do you know
unwashed
what
masses.
has just occurred to me?
I don't know.
Well, somebody is going to suddenly take what Emma has just said quite rightly and apply it to us.
Well, they could do that, except
know.
for the fact that you have got a great deal of experience in commenting, writing newspaper columns, doing television shows, and being who you are for a very long time.
Yeah, but
right?
that doesn't make me, any better opinionated than anyone else.
Well, it does actually. I disagree with that. I think you have a great right to have an opinion, as do I. We've seen things that some people haven't seen. We've
then
done
using
things
that
some
premise,
people haven't done.
then surely a lot of the lovies would too.
Well, no, because they haven't done anything. All they've done is go to RADA and then get hired to go into
they've
a
all-
trailer.
Drama
They've all
schools
got a
are
right to
available.
their opinion, and everybody, I think, should be able to say what they think on any subject. It's just that they don't have the self-awareness to realise what they're doing and to see it for what it is. They don't realise either that they're trapped in this little elite bubble and that they are
paid
that they
ludicrous
and that
amounts of
they
money.
appear to be just simply preaching to people. From
And
the
I think the
position.
money thing is important because these are people who live a life which is unlike any other, very privileged, incredibly.
Why do they dress so appallingly when they go to these shows?
Well,
It's like
that's-
their clothes don't fit them.
No, well, that's another problem because they're always presumably changing the shape of their body to play the next part that they're
Well, you
playing.
and I do that.
I do that all the time.
Yeah. But I've just had a thought,
on.
okay? So for all those people who aren't celebrities,
Yeah.
right, they can call in to Talk Radio and Talk Radio
that's why we're the
TV,
voice of the people.
and they can have their say. Admittedly, Mike might cut you off.
It's true,
But
because
you will
apparently,
get to say something.
I've learned how to do that from James,
Oh, don't bat it back at me.
Well, I'm sorry, that's what I'm being accused of. Now, before I give you my third nominee, I'm going to have to, we carry one over because we always have a top 10.
Oh, do you?
Well, because even you can work out 3 times 3 is only 9, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you have to
need an extra one,
add
yeah.
one over to make
Yeah,
it
I'm not
top
very good
10.
at maths.
Top 10. So
We
I'm
didn't do that in
afraid
the
it
university
used to
life.
be that the staple of the carryovers was Harry and Meghan. Now, I'm not going to put them in it this week because the obvious carryover from last week is Vladimir Putin.
Yeah.
Because he won it, obviously, the week that he actually did invade Ukraine. And he continues to act like a complete plank and he continues to not listen to anybody.
Yeah.
So he will carry over into the top 10. But my actual third nominee is a bloke you might remember from the old days of the Tory party when it was full of wets and full of people who wanted to be mayor of London. It is Rory Stewart, the former MP who famously went to Afghanistan when he was in the army and smoked a lot of ganja, smoked a lot of hash, and apparently he said it was a great experience. I'm not sure he was smoking ganja, to be honest, because when he described what happened to him when he was smoking it, I was like, no, I don't think that was ganja.
Because you're more of an expert.
Well, I mean, I've smoked it. I mean, there's no point in pretending that I haven't. I'm sure you have in your time, haven't you?
I couldn't possibly comment.
No, fine, thank you. This was a very long time ago, by the way, if anybody's wondering.
Does
But,
Emma want to comment?
I've never taken any drugs. I'm a square.
She is a square.
Can't you tell?
Yeah. She is.
She is, yeah.
She is a woman of faith,
Yeah.
and she is a square.
Yeah.
And so there's nothing wrong with that.
Square.
A square. She, by her own admission, she said she was a
That is
square.
really old. That's really 60s. You're showing yourself up to be a lot older than you pretend.
Me?
Yeah.
She said she was a square. I didn't say it.
Well,
Anyway, Rory Stewart's been giving some thought
Yeah.
to climate change.
oh,
first
good.
of all.
Oh, good. Good.
Because
yeah,
you
so
know
important.
you can't really have a week go by if you're supposed to be woke without mentioning climate change. I actually read a piece in the Atlantic magazine this week by a guy whose name I forget, who was saying that never mind the war in Ukraine, let's think about the damage it's doing to the climate. And you're right. What? Are you serious? So anyway, Rory Stewart has come out with this tweet this week. He says, during the course of the Ukraine crisis across Europe, here's what we should do to help the environment.
Go on.
Okay. Number one, reduce all speed limits to 50 miles an hour.
Well,
I
they've
mean,
reduced them to 20 miles
good
an hour
luck.
in London. It seems sometimes like you're walking.
Good luck doing 50 anywhere near London.
Make sure everyone gets stuck in traffic,
Yeah.
so that they're sitting
When
there
you get on a
pumping out their
motorway,
emissions.
you want to get your foot down and go where you need to be.
Yes, indeed. And the speed limit is 70.
Does that have a significant impact on emissions? Getting somewhere slower, presumably the
think so.
opposite.
I would imagine
I
so.
would think it would be the other way around because the engine's working harder.
Well, if you've got a clean engine like mine, it doesn't pollute at all.
Well, there we are.
Don't need an electric
There is
car.
a campaign starting to get rid of this net zero stupidity.
Well, I'm in favour of that.
Me too.
I'm in favour of a
I'm
referendum
joining
on
it.
net zero. Number two from Rory Stewart, make all public transport free.
Do you know, actually, I don't mind that.
Yeah, well, who's paying for it though?
It's not
We
free, is it? Because we're
You know,
paying
I was
for
telling
it.
this story
Actually, that's
today.
a good point. It's
You know,
a good point.
Again, nothing is free, right?
All it means is that taxes have to go up even more, and it makes
Exactly.
people's.
Yeah. No, you're right.
I mean, Transport
You're
for
right.
London, for example, is meant to be going bankrupt, right? So they can't make transport free. Number three, Uber should open technology to allow free civilian ride sharing.
What? What does
Civilian.
that mean?
I don't know.
Civilian.
Does he mean in Ukraine? I don't know if Uber are operating in a war zone, are they? I presume he means here. What is civilian ride sharing?
I think that when you can share a ride on Uber where you can carpool
I
with
wouldn't
other
do that.
people.
I don't want to share with
I
anybody.
don't want to, no.
We don't want to
I
go
wanna
with
get in
other
a
people
taxi.
we don't know,
No.
do we? No.
But why on earth would a private business make the decision to make carpooling free when they charge for that service already?
This happened to me in Washington,
cheaper,
D.C.
but-
I used to get to Washington, D.C. National Airport, which is now called Reagan National, and you'd get in a cab, right? And before you knew what was happening, there'd be two other people getting in it. And the guy who was running the cab stand,
Yeah.
without asking you, would put people in cabs together, right? Because they didn't have
And
enough
did you
cabs.
get out and say, oi?
I did a couple of times.
Good man.
I said, I want a cab of my own. He said, oh, you should have said. Because otherwise you end up driving into town and they drop one person off and then they go
Taking a
to where
bus.
you're going. Yeah, I'm like, that's not a taxi. But it was a
No.
bit cheaper.
But I much prefer, if I'm in London, like we are at the moment, I much prefer to use a black cab.
Yes, I like to use a black cab.
I was in
get a
I was in a
decent-
black
if you
cab
could
the other
find
day that faked the cab itself breaking down because they didn't want to go on a longer journey. Got out of the cab and then it just drove
really?
off. Yeah,
Well, do you know, I was talking to a cab.
Did you
a
take
black
the
cab.
number? Because I'd
No.
report that.
no.
I would have reported
I
that.
was in a black cab this morning, funnily enough. And,
Really? You told me you walked here.
no, I didn't.
Oh, I thought you did.
No.
Well, how come when I was sitting outside the pub a mile away, you were sort of, oh, I've walked all the way.
Are you sure you're not hallucinating? That was somebody else. That was Kevin O'Sullivan, you're thinking.
Oh, might have
I
been.
know it's
yeah,
easy
yeah,
to confuse
he
the two.
looked-
He's also
yeah.
a lot older than me.
Yeah.
Anyway, his final statement here. This would reduce demand and the price of Russian oil. I don't know how he works that one out. And it would have a catastrophic impact on Putin. What? So apparently by getting free public transport, reducing the speed limit to 50 and sharing your ride in Uber, that will defeat Vladimir Putin, according to Rory Stewart. This is a bloke who's meant to be in the armed forces.
You know, I think
Loopy.
he had his bit in.
He's back on the
Parliament
ganja.
and I don't know what he's on, but I think those are all stupid ideas.
Aren't they?
Really stupid
Presumably the
ideas.
reason, I'm trying to figure out what the reasoning can possibly be, but I think what he's saying is that all of these things would reduce our reliance on gas and oil and therefore
Well, so would
reduce our
going back
reliance
to
on
live
Russia.
in a cave. But I mean, it doesn't mean you should actually...
But it
Can I
will
ju-
also
can
none
I
of these
just
things
make
will
a point
work.
about this
so.
because I get really annoyed about this nearly as much as religion. Right? We can't do at the moment without fossil fuel. We can't.
No.
And we won't be able to for years.
No.
And everybody that says, oh, come on, we're going to die, the climate has always changed. It will always change. It may well be that man has sped it up. We might even have slowed it down. Who knows? Because science changes. And everybody says, we're following the science. Well, you follow the science today, the science in a couple of years could be completely different. Yes, we should clean up the planet. Yes, we should make sure there's none of this plastic floating around in the oceans. We've got to do all of that. Yes, we should stop building on floodplains. Yes, we should clean engines up. But if you think we're going to have a life of wind and solar power, you are stupid.
Yes, I agree with that. Time to wrap it up. Let's find out who's going to be Plank of the Week.
Did you do your third one?
That was Rory Stewart.
Oh, right. Did you do your third one?
Nottingham.
Yes.
This is all gone very quick.
Well, yeah, but now we've only got
it's
2
nearly
minutes.
8 o'clock.
We've only got 2 minutes to go.
All right.
Welcome back to the 100th edition of Plank of the Week. Now's the time we find out who is going to be in the top 3. James, why don't you tell Emma your 3 nominations and she can pick one?
Out of all the ones we've talked about?
No, out of your 3. Or shall I tell her?
Well, you tell her, yeah.
I'll tell her. Right, so his 3 were Benedict Cumberbatch, Russell Brand and the legendary James Whale.
I didn't really want to say that myself. Oh, you're picking me, are you, Emma? Fine.
No, I think
No, Emma, please. Pick me. I'm quite happy.
Go on then.
You want to pick James Whale? This is unbelievable.
I was gonna backtrack and say actually,
Right, so I'm going to pick.
Bendy
So
Back
I'm gonna pick
Cumberface
yours
should
then.
be the.
Yes.
So
your 3 were?
Sturgeon, Macron, or Nottingham University.
It's got to be Sturgeon, isn't it? It's got to be Sturgeon, particularly
Yeah,
with the
I
old
think so.
masks. I think we're going to put one in there. For
Too
Scotland.
many
And
crimes
now
against her
mine,
name.
which you can pick which one you like the best. John Bercow, Rory Stewart, and the Labour Party.
God, I like them all. I'd give them all a plank.
They're all going to be in the top 10.
Yeah, but I think I'm going to have to go for. It's difficult because I like the whole of the Labour Party in there. I'd love to see Rory Stewart in there, but I think I'm going to give it to John Bercow.
So we've got to choose a winner: Nicola Sturgeon, James Whale, or John Bercow. Emma, what's your
Sturgeon.
sense? Sturgeon number 1.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, that's her choice, though, of course.
Well, that doesn't matter though.
No.
I would go with that. Sturgeon number 1.
So many.
I'd be happy with James Whale as number 2. Play.
Well,
Ahead of John Bercow.
Yeah, I will go with Sturgeon as number 1.
Yeah.
Because I think what she's doing to Scotland is disgraceful.
Yes.
She's done so many plankish things in the last
has,
couple of weeks.
yeah.
It's got to be her.
It's got to be her. I think she's definitely the woman of the moment. So, well done. Congratulations. James Whale comes in 2nd, Bercow 3rd, but the winner this week of the 100th edition of Plank of the Week, Nicola Sturgeon, First Minister of Scotland. Well done.